Welcome back to the Morning Blend. It may seem obvious that kids and guns don't mix, but in some cultures across our country, it's common for kids to handle firearms.
And our next guest knows that all too well. Craig Collins grew up in rural Nevada, and he accidentally shot himself in the foot when he was 13. Not figuratively, literally.
Right.
True. He wrote about that incident and many others in his memoir titled Thunder in the Mountains. So welcome to the Morning Blend, Craig.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
I think a lot of people say, oh, shot himself in the foot. That sounds funny, but it's not funny. You really did that.
Yeah, it's nothing like, you know, in the Bugs Bunny cartoons when Yosemite Sam shoots himself in the foot and he hops around for about 5 seconds and he runs off and chases the rabbit again.
Right.
It was pain beyond description. And it was a .30-30 Winchester, which is a high-powered deer rifle, and basically the bullet vaporizes everything in its path. And about a quarter inch to the right, it would have severed the major tendon that runs down the top of your foot, and about 3/4 inch to the left, and it would have missed altogether. And I sat on the side of a 10,000-foot mountain for about 3 hours while my dad had to go back and get the truck. And I was 6 miles from the nearest dirt road, 30 miles from the nearest paved road, 50 miles from the nearest phone, and 110 miles from the nearest hospital. So it took about 8 hours, and there wasn't an aspirin or a shot of whiskey in sight, so it was quite painful.
Yeah, I bet it was, and very memorable in a bad way. I think it's amazing, the statistic that you point out, because you grew up in a small ranching, railroad, and mining town that was located in northern Nevada.
Right.
And you say that with guns and the gun culture at that time, it meant that if you were a teenage boy growing up in your town, you had about a 1 in 50 chance of getting shot. And you have these incredibly personal stories of all of these people growing up who were shot. One self-inflicted, I think the father of your girlfriend in 8th grade, but a lot of your classmates accidentally were shot, and some of them killed, some of them had permanent brain damage as a result of those wounds.
Yeah, over about a 3-year period while I lived in Winnemucca, there were six kids, all boys, who were shot. 3 were killed, 1 had permanent brain damage, and 1 was severely wounded through the neck and torso. So I got off pretty easy with the foot. And that's not uncommon in towns throughout the West, where the gun culture is very strong. And it's not uncommon in America. Gunshots are the 2nd leading cause of death among boys. It outnumbers the next 9 leading causes of death combined. So it's a big factor. And you know, the fact is, if you have a boy and a gun in the house, it's just a bad idea. And if you insist on having weapons in your home, and you have a boy in the home, and I don't mean to single out boys and say, you know, boys and girls are different, but boys are attracted to guns like metal to magnets. They just have a different relationship with guns than girls do. And so if you insist on having a gun in the house, you need to keep it in a gun safe with a trigger lock, or even better yet, keep it off-site at a gun range in a locker.
Well, I think you make an interesting point with that too, because, you know, just in general we think, oh, well, yeah, duh, kids shouldn't play with guns. Nobody's going to say, here, go play with a gun in, you know, middle of America here or in Milwaukee.
Right.
But they think, well, if it's locked up, it's safe. But your whole point is that boy will seek out a gun if he knows it's in the house.
Having been a teenage boy and having raised a teenage boy, I can tell you, there is no place in the house that you can hide anything that's cool or forbidden or something like that a teenage boy won't find it. So if you think you have it safely ensconced in the attic, or if you think you have it hidden, you know, in the back of your sock drawer, trust me, a boy will find that gun.
And they're probably showing their friends.
And they're probably showing their friends. And I do have, you know, one of the things that compelled me to write the book was the best friend of my son. I thought I'd moved out of gun country. I live in San Diego in a well-manicured suburb, and I thought all this was behind me. And the best friend of my son, his father had a rifle, and he had hidden it purposefully in the attic. And the son didn't make the football team one day, and he had asked the girl to the prom and got rejected. And you know, for a teenage boy, that seems like the end of the world. And he came home, climbed into the attic, and his mother found him dead in the attic. And so it was a tragic, tragic event. And so those things happen constantly in this country.
Yeah, and you see even today, I mean, this sounds like something from, you know, from a couple decades ago, but it's something that's still current. I mean, there is still gun culture in our country, especially in the West. And you make the point, I think this is really important to say, that boys under the age of 18 and probably even under the age of 21 just don't have the appropriate cognitive abilities in judgment, in attention span, in impulse control, hand-eye coordination, motor skills, all of those to really effectively handle guns and make decisions that involve firearms.
Yeah, you know, it goes back to, you know, having been a teenage boy and having raised a teenage boy. I can tell you that teenage boys are extremely smart in, you know, in some ways, and then, you know, they're about as smart as an Irish setter puppy in other ways, you know, and I've certainly done some dumb things in my life. And guns are just so lethal. The very essence of a gun is to kill. They're highly lethal, and they need to be handled with extreme care and extreme vigilance. And, you know, kids and boys, you know, from the age of 13 to 18 just don't have, you know, the necessary cognitive abilities to really be vigilant 24/7 when they handle a gun.
I think people have to come to your book signing tonight at 7 o'clock because your book also opens up with some tidbits about Wisconsin. So you've got to go there to find out why and get your copy of the book. It's going on tonight at 7 o'clock at Boswell Book Company on Downer. You can also learn more about the book Thunder in the Mountains at CraigKCollins.com.
I just wanted to make the point really quickly that if you're pro-gun, because it sounds very anti-gun what we're saying, if you're pro-gun, you make the point that there's much to like and learn about your book and from your experience, and if you're anti, you will also find it compelling. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, thanks.
I didn't get this is not a political screed. I don't get up on a soapbox. I don't editorialize in the book, and I just let the readers do the heavy lifting and make their own decisions.
It's great. Really nice to meet you. Thanks for sharing your story. We appreciate it.
Thanks.